No, that sounds a bit too aggressive. No, that sounds a bit like it's a bit nicer. Evening, Byron. How are you doing? Hey, Surian. How are you doing? Hey, Connor. Welcome in. So yeah, don't really have much planned for this evening. Just gonna hang out and chat, really. Yeah, it's been a rough day for personal reasons, so yeah, could be better, could be worse. But yeah, feeling good at the moment. So yeah, just trying to relax and just enjoy the evening. You guys been up to much today? I know for you guys in America, you got much. I suppose I should say, have you got much planned for today? It's got off work, nice. I've gotten it written out, awesome. And you know what? Before I can forget, let's quickly just throw in some homebrew channels on the Discord server. Oh yeah, there you go. Sorry, on the Discord server I've created some homebrew channels, so if you want to post your Lore Van 40k homebrew channel, you can. And good, yeah, it's always a good thing when you don't burn your house down. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to do this evening. Just yeah, again, to repeat myself, yeah, don't really have anything planned, just wanted to chill and hang out. If there's yeah, if there's anything you'd like to see me play or anything, then yeah, we can do it. I'm going to put Velour Vest, some of it will go against other details I put. This is on purpose. Yeah, do it. It's always interesting to read. Yeah, I suppose, are you guys excited for tomorrow, the Nova Open releases, reveals? And what are you guys hoping to see? Oh, that was loud. Sorry about that. Yeah, let's see. I have to mute them because I did actually get a copyright strike for playing the Escher trailer. And it won't let me full screen. So 40k will be Votan. Age of Sigmar will be Chaos. For Horus Heresy, I'm not sure. I'm hoping there'll be something. It'll be interesting. So yeah. Is that only tomorrow? Thanks to Alpha Legion, I'm not expecting any. Well, the thing is, for 40k they won't be doing any Legion specific stuff for Chaos Undivided Forces for a very long time. And for the Horus Heresy, the Alpha Legion already have all of their stuff. The only character we don't have a model for is Exodus, but then at the same time I doubt we ever will get a model for Exodus because that's kind of the point of him. But we have our Legion specific Power Armoured and Terminator Praetors. And when we have our Primarch and we have our special units and we have our Legion upgrades. We even have Mark 6 and helmets and shoulder pads. What about Arcus? Who's Arcus? Oh, a Mark IV shoulders and arms. Yeah, they still look very good on Mark 6 Marines as well. I mean, one of them is just straight up a beaky. Let's go over right here. And yeah, I have this model. I love it. Why does someone remind me of Skillet? I have no clue who that is, I'm afraid. And the Alpha Legion also have one of the best looking Contemptor Dreadnoughts as well. Oh, Arcos. Yeah, he's a 40k character. More than a Heresy character. And he doesn't have any rules for the Heresy. And what thing, Saurian? Yeah, I really love the Alpha Legion. Overall, I think they're probably my favourite complete force. I really like the Emperor's Children Legion. I like Fulgrim, but I do prefer Alfarius as a Primarch, and I do really love the Alpha Legion as well. I still need to get my hands on a Alfarius model at some point, but he just costs so much. And I can't really justify spending this much money on a singular model, especially one as small as a Primarch. Where you can buy an Imperial Knight for the same price. Yeah, before I get too distracted, yeah, any heresy topics or questions you have? Is that something I'm always willing to talk about and discuss? Oh, do you have a Alfarius model, Connor? Or are you talking about ones on Forge World? Forge World ones, yeah, I think I agree with you. I think this is probably one of the most underrated models from Forge World. It's just such a simple little model, and very fragile and very delicate, but so beautiful. It's one of those real hidden gem style models. The best ranged Leviathan weapon and longest ranged? Good question. Well, let's have a look. Let's just go to Heresy. I think you can still buy him. Yeah. Let's have a look. Hey G, thanks for the donation. We're slowly getting there towards having the money to get me the equipment to do a face reveal. Yeah, thanks for that. Hope you're doing alright. Does the Leviathan come under heavy support? Yeah, it does. Okay, so what weapons can it have? Storm Cannon, Melter Lance, and Grav Flux Bombard. So Storm Cannon is probably going to be the longest range. Okay, so the Fire Storm Cannon, 6 shots, strength 7, AP4, rending 5+ and Sunder, means it'll be quite good at destroying lighter vehicles. You get 6 shots, that's quite good. Wouldn't necessarily use it for going against infantry though, because you're only getting you're only ignoring armor saves on wound rolls of a 5+. It's not bad. Cyclonic Melter Lance. Uh, 18-inch strength 8, AP1, heavy 4. Armor Bane Melter could be an interesting choice. Melter Lance, I'm not sure I'd necessarily take it for 20 points because you have to get very close to use it. And at that point you're probably going to destroy a vehicle in close combat, so probably feels like a bit of a waste to use the Melter Lance, especially for 20 points. Yeah. Yeah, if it's part of a single unit, it only takes up 1 slot, which is how you take multiple Leviathan. So you could run 9 Leviathan Dreadnoughts in a Crusade army, at the cost of not taking any other heavy supports. And the last weapon is the Grav Flux Bombard. Again, Grav Flux Bombard is quite a close range thing. But I'd probably still take it over the Melter Lance, especially as it's only 5 points. Well, they're not really, Byron, they're not really designed for being a weapons platform. They're very much designed for being close combat orientated. So yeah, I'd probably take if I were to run a Leviathan, I would run the Leviathan with the Grav Flux Bombard as the weapon choice, because it is 18-inch range, again AP4, it's heavy 1, large blast, and has Graviton Collapse, Torsion Cutter, Ignores Cover, and Concussive. So we'll just run through what those rules mean once I find them. So, with a graviton weapon, you have to roll lower than the model's toughness. Strength characteristic on 2d6. So it's not necessarily hugely impactful against Space Marines, but at the same time, it's quite useful because they suffer a wound. And also, it's does 4d6 of armor penetration against vehicles, so it's more useful against a vehicle, because you get to roll as those 4d6, and you roll 2d6 to damage enemy infantry, and if you roll lower than a 4, you wound them. Which means you're not necessarily going to be killing things with the grav gun, but when you do hit them and you do wound them, and hey Doyle, how are you doing? Where is it? Torsion Cutter. So yeah, if you hit a vehicle with the Graviton Charge Cannon, Grav Flux Bombard, sorry, you do twice the amount of damage. So for you do double, you double the hull points caused by it. So you effectively chip 2 hull points off every time you hit a vehicle with this, which is quite good. And the final thing is it has concussive. It's very useful, especially if you're trying to get into close combat with something that's a bit tougher. Sorry, I just need to switch books. So, concussive. So if a unit suffers a wound from this graviton gun, then they have to take a leadership test, and if they fail, they drop down to what was that? Oh, I think it was weapon skill. Yeah, so I dropped down to weapon skill 1. So, whilst it's not necessarily the most effective at killing things, obviously the bigger the thing is shooting at, the more effective it is. If you do hit like a blob of infantry with it, and you kill one of them, they're forced to take a leadership test, and if they fail, then they are going to be at weapon skill 1. And if you're shooting this, you're probably within range to charge them, meaning you're then suddenly incredibly lethal in close combat. So if you wanted to, dial up the firepower of your Leviathan using a gun, then the Grav Flux Bombard is probably a good choice, especially as it's only a 5-point upgrade, and it's quite versatile in that sense as well. Also, imagine if you so one of the big situations where I can see it being really useful is against Thousand Suns. As you'll often see with Thousand Suns, that the librarians and stuff are going to be hiding in a blob of 20 guys. This is a large blast weapon, so you put the large blast over the center of the enemy. You're going to be hitting lots of them, and for everyone you hit you have to roll 2d6. If you roll 4 or less, then they take a wound. And if one of those wounds goes unsaved, that entire unit has to take a leadership check, which will be at leadership 10 because of a psyker. But if they fail, they're going to be in weapon skill 1 for that entire unit, including the character. And then you charge in, and you beat the crap out of the psyker. On top of that, a Leviathan can also take Volkite weapons as well, and I'd probably recommend doing that. Unless you play as Salamanders, in which to take the Heavy Flamers. Or if you play Death Guard, to take the Flamers as well, because you can switch them out for the... Yeah, so you can switch those out for the special Death Guard versions. But yeah, Storm Cannon if you want traditional firepower, and Grav Flux if you want to assist in your close combat capabilities. If not, just run dual close combat. Remember, by not taking a pair, you do lose out on a singular attack in close combat, so if you feel like you need that extra attack, then don't bother running a ranged weapon on your Leviathan. But if you do want to pay that 5 points, then the Grav Flux Bombard's probably a good choice. Because also it ignores cover as well, so... Yeah. Oh, hey Hamish, how you doing? And yeah, we're just talking about what weapons you should probably put on your Leviathans. Won't Tigers be making difficult terrain everywhere? Sorry, I can't remember what it's called, but it leaves a template. That will be the Graviton weapon itself, yes, and that's another reason why you take a Graviton weapon. Although it doesn't look like it has Graviton Pulse to roll. Hold on a second. If it did, then it would be something I would just say, maybe even take 2. And Hygie. Hold on, let's have a quick look. It's unfortunately split across 2 books, but makes sense. Yeah, it doesn't have Graviton Pulse, it has Graviton Collapse. Which I think we just went through. Yeah, so it's yeah, so this is the thing. The Grav Flux Bombard is probably a good choice, not for its lethal capabilities, but because of the implications of it. Because if a model in a unit takes a wound from the Grav Flux Bombard, they have to take a leadership check, and if they fail it, they drop down to weapon skill 1. And because they're at weapon skill 1, and this is an 18-inch range weapon, you're probably within range to charge them. So being able to force them down to weapon skill 1, you then can charge in and you'll have a huge advantage in close combat. And it only costs 5 points. The Graviton gun is also pretty good at killing vehicles, because if you put the template over a vehicle, you roll 4d6 for armor penetration. Meaning that you're more than likely to penetrate, and for every hull point you do double the amount of hull points and damage. So every time you glance or penetrate a vehicle with a Graviton Bombard, a Grav Flux Bombard, you do 2 hull points, which is quite good. And yeah, the autocannon is quite good for killing especially if you play Imperial Fist, because it counts as an auto weapon, so you get your +1 to ballistic skill with it, meaning you hit on a 2+, and you get to reroll, and on the reroll you get a hit on a 6+, which makes it 1 more likely to hit, and a 5+ to wound. Yeah, so Fulgrim is actually against Primarchs and higher strength characters, yes. So in a situation you're shooting against Fulgrim, as long as he's under the template, you hit him, and then you have to roll a 6 or less on 2d6 to wound him. And in the event that you do actually wound him, I have to pass a leadership check, and if I fail, I drop down to weapon skill 1. Meaning that in a challenge, I am weapon skill 2, you're weapon skill 4. You have the advantage, and you're significantly more likely to hit with your attacks. Obviously, this is relying on you rolling to wound, me failing an armor save, and then me failing a leadership check with a Primarch. But for 5 points, it's a pretty good gamble. Again, you don't use it against individual characters in this situation, as I suggested earlier. A good example of where the grav gun would actually be really good would be against Thousand Suns, as they yeah, same. The Psychers leave a template. So yeah, hey Josie. Yeah, we're talking about the weapons and what effective. So yeah, we'll grab Flux Bombard. To repeat myself again, sorry for those who've heard this twice now. But yeah, the Grab Flux Bombard is really good if you're shooting at a large group of infantry. So the example I gave was Thousand Suns, as their Praetors and Centurions are likely to be in a large blob of infantry, because if they Perils of a Warp, they can assign the mortal wounds to one of the any person in that unit. So putting a Centurion or a Praetor into a 20-man tactical squad is actually a very effective way to make sure your Psyker doesn't die. And yeah, so the Grab Flux Bombard is a large blast template, meaning you're going to be hitting multiple people in that squad. And for each one of those, you're rolling 2d6, and on a roll of a 4 or lower, you wound them. If they fail an armor save, they have to take a leadership check. And obviously, the more leadership checks you can force, the more likely they are to fail one. And if they fail one, they become weapon skill 1, allowing you to then charge in and mince them in close combat. And yeah, I think there are some Psychers which can do the same thing as the Graviton. So yeah, if you have to charge through it, then it does count as difficult terrain, which reduces your movement characteristics. So it makes the charge a bit more difficult, and yeah, you may have to roll a dice to see if it's dangerous terrain, depending on how the terrain works. And so quick question, what do you think would be a good Leviathan loadout for an Iron Warrior? Well, for an Iron Warriors one. Again, it depends what you want it to do. So how I would personally run it, and the suggestion here is you keep it with the basic close combat weapons, but you upgrade it for 5 points for Grab Flux Bombard, as it's only 5 points. And yeah, increases the capability for the Leviathan to damage tanks. It does turn it into a probability-based thing, because it's 4d6 for armor penetration. But if it does penetrate, it will do 2 hull points of damage. And it's also very good at forcing infantry to take checks, encourage, and can put units down to weapon skill 1. Which could be quite useful in situations, especially as a Leviathan is geared around murdering people in close combat. So 5 points and the cost of a single close combat attack does make the Graviton a relatively good upgrade, especially if you're running more than one and if it's not your only close combat unit. As like, for me, if I were to run a Leviathan, having Grav Flux Bombard to shoot at an enemy unit, which I'm about to charge with some of my more dangerous units, like the Palatine Blades or the Phoenix Guard, so Phoenix Wardens, makes it a very dangerous prospect for the enemy. And then also you can have the Volkite or the Heavy Flamers built into a chassis as well, which are very good weapons. Yeah, the strength of the Leviathan is in close combat. And what happened to the Leviathan lore-wise? So the Leviathan is a Terran design for a Dreadnought. It's not a Mechanicum design, and it is a very, very expensive and complex machine, which also has a significant impact on the pilot of the machine, as it causes them to basically go insane. As well as significantly shortening their lifespan. It's not a life support, it's a life extension, is the best way to put it. It's a very painful and maddening experience to be put into a Leviathan Dreadnought. And so, it not being very practical, it being very expensive, and not something Mechanicus are very happy with, meant it became a very rare vehicle in 40k. That's not to say there aren't any kicking around, there are still some around, and there must be some Forge Worlds producing them somewhere, but yeah, they're just not very popular, in the same way Cataphractii Terminator armor just kind of fell out of existence because it's slow, it's bulky, it's very difficult to produce, and Indomitus Terminator armor, regular Terminator armor in 40k just kind of does it better. Yes, it doesn't provide as much protection, but at the same time, the agility and the maneuverability of regular Terminator armor is just that much more useful. And what's your EC look like and why? What do you mean, Byron? How do they physically look? Or how do I play them? Or what? Yeah. I'm starting to get a little bit nervous about the goal as well, on a side note, in terms of looks and appearances. My list. Well, I have 4,000 points of Emperor's Children at this point. I normally run them very aggressively, and at the moment I basically only exclusively use the Maruscara Rite of War, which allows you to put up, well, just under half of your army into outflank. So they can arrive from a table edge, which helps deliver the close combat and melee focused units onto the board very quickly, and also allows you to pull off maneuvers with very rude surprises to the enemy, like a Spartan full of Cataphractii Terminators and Fulgrim showing up from the side of the battlefield in the enemy's deployment zone. And yeah, as the Emperor's Children's unique Legion trait is we get +1 initiative on the charge, I normally try and focus on getting like-for-like units and trying to design those units to be specifically aggressive and deadly towards their equals. So for example, I run my Cataphractii Terminators with Power Fists, despite that dropping down to Initiative 1, any other Cataphracti with Power Fists on the enemy side are also going to be Initiative 1. But if I get the charge off, I'm at Initiative 2, meaning I get to strike first. And Power Fists are very useful and very powerful. So they're quite effective. And I take the Leer Blade. Just being able to wound everything on 2s. And ignoring their armor saves, being able to reroll everything is just too good not to use, really. And Lucius at this point isn't auto-included in my army lists. So if I take Lucius and Fulgrim has to have the Leer Blade. So, yeah. And yeah, I suppose G, you do make a good point. Here for content, not a beauty show. I mean, you guys seem to enjoy looking at Chapter Master Varroc's face on stream, so I guess I don't need to be too worried about it. But I do find it kind of amusing. You guys are more willing to throw money at me for a knight than to actually see what I look like, which is an interesting way around things. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't automatically say that being bold and hairless is a necessarily bad thing. I know going through chemo and stuff is rough on your body, generally speaking, as well. But yeah, I wouldn't say that's necessarily a negative thing to be bold. And yeah, I suppose back to Imperial, the Emperor's Children thing. Yeah, I am very much focused on making my Emperor's Children focused on melee. I always run tactical squads to hold objectives, and I normally run them with chain bayonets or regular bayonets. Because, yeah, anything to increase the strength and lethality of the Emperor's Children in close combat is very useful. Chain bayonets giving you the additional strength and shred, and the Emperor's Children ability to strike first is really useful, even if it isn't the extra attack you could have, because you sacrifice those going for the bayonet. It's still more, I find it a bit more useful to go for the guaranteed kills of the higher strength than the number of attacks, because as I'm striking first, my job is to reduce the amount of enemies left to strike back at me. So yeah, my tactical marines run chain bayonets. The sergeants will always run phoenix weapons. As I have to issue challenges, I'm always going to go for yeah, I always have to go for challenges, so taking phoenix weapons is always good. So yeah, the 5+ or 6+ to instant death the enemy and ignore their armor saves is very useful, especially as so many people run artificer armor on their sergeants. And what would you at least like to see in your enemy's force? What unit or units would make you concerned based off on your normal army list? Well, snipers. As my entire it's Emperor's Children, right? It's all about the strong, defined characters. you know, I rely on my sergeant to be doing the heavy lifting in the squads in melee. I rely on my characters like Lucius and my Phoenix Warden and stuff to be killing other characters, so snipers, and yeah, anything with an excessively long range and AP3 or AP2 are generally things I'm terrified of. And why is there no chain bayonet in 40k? Well, there's actually some lore behind this. It's basically certain weapons were just associated with a brutal barbarism of the traitor Space Marines. The chain bayonet and the chain axe were two such weapons which were firmly associated with traitors, and just kind of out of like symbolic gesture, they decided the Imperium chose not to use such barbaric weapons again. In the same way that they started to all wear the Aquila on the Mark 7 power armor that they started to refit the Space Marine chapters with after the Heresy. Whilst it wasn't a thing during the Heresy to wear the Aquila as an honour only to the Emperor's children, as they were the ones who stood loyal against their traitorous brothers, they were deemed worthy enough to wear the Aquila. And to just kind of like uplift and try and restore the image of the Space Marines, the chain bayonet and the chain axe were kind of dropped. Graviton weapons and other weapons which didn't quite make it through, like Volkite, I mean, it's kind of made a return of Neo-Volkite. They have a different reason for kind of fading out, and that's simply because the Forge Worlds and the technologies to make them were destroyed during the Heresy. And yeah, that's an excellent use for the Vigilator, Byron. Well, the Emperor was already basically incapacitated and mute by the point any decisions like this were made. But it was kind of like an agreed upon decision by the surviving Primarchs. It's not necessarily written in the Codex Astartes, thou shalt not use chain bayonets or chain axes, it's just something which the chapters kind of agreed on we just won't do. So you also have to think what chapters were around, right? It's just the Loyalist legions, and they aren't exactly ones known for the chain axes. And the chain bayonet was also, again, something that's more associated with traitor legions. Like you'd probably see it more in World Eaters or the Sons of Horus, or perhaps even the Iron Warriors, rather than any of the Loyalist legions. And yeah, just the imagery and the decision to drop them just kind of worked relatively well with how the Codex Astartes suggests you fight. You have to remember the Codex Astartes was written as a way to make Space Marines as useful as possible in a way that's not the Codex Astartes is a way of trying to make Space Marines as useful and as flexible as possible in any given situation, but primarily as a group of forces working together to defeat a united force of Space Marines. And as so much of the Codex Astartes is built around defeating the traitor legions in ways that counter the way the traitor legions fight, there just wasn't really any space for the mindless, brutal close combat that you see from the World Eaters or the Sons of Horus or the Iron Warriors or the Emperor's Children. So even then, with the Codex Astartes suggesting how you deal with traitor Astartes, the use of chain bayonets and chain axes just didn't really it just wasn't a thing really anymore. So it didn't have any practical use on the battlefield, and the symbology of those weapons and what they were associated with just made them just not really appealing to the Space Marine chapters. And hey, how are you doing? We'll be doing a bit of a late night lore chat and Horus Heresy tabletop discussion. But yeah, there are certain exceptions out there in 40k. I'm fairly sure the Space Sharks and the Minotaurs have been seen using chain axes and bayonets. The Mantis Warriors and a lot of the Bad Ab Warstar chapters also use some of the, in quotes, forbidden weapons as well. And yeah, no, this is a thing as well. I'm just going to I think that post-Heresy chapters are much more sensible, like the Flesh Tearers and the Black Templars. Yeah, it's so not to sound like an Ultramarine, and not as a Guilliman simp, as I think it's fairly clear I'm an Alpha Legion and Emperor's Children person. The Codex Astartes is like the Art of War as a book. Right, it's a guidelines on what are the best and most logical ways to go about dealing with situations may be presented with on the battlefield. Typically speaking, following them will lead you to victory, because this is well-researched, well-studied, well-based documentation. It's like following science, right? If you follow the science, the scientific facts, you're almost always going to come out with the result you expect. And that's what the Codex Astartes provides for you on the battlefield. The Codex Astartes organisational side of things is designed to make sure that a group of 1,000 Space Marines, a force impossible to create an insurrection like Horus did, is still as useful as possible. Yes, that is a limitation and a restriction that handicaps the capabilities of the Space Marines, but the book also in itself provides how to make that 1,000-strong Space Marine chapter as powerful as possible. Which is good. It's a really good thing. It's a really clever thing. It's an intelligent thing. And especially with how Guilliman intended the Space Marine chapters to operate, which was as multiple chapters operating together in a singular theatre. It provides for multiple self-dependent forces to work in concert in a way that's predictable, allowing the allied forces to work together, understanding how the other force is going to work, so they can work in near autonomy in the same field of combat together, because they know and expect what the other forces will be doing in the situations they find themselves in. Meaning that the amount of command and organisation and inter-chapter communications can be kept at a minimum, meaning that only the broadcasts and discussions that need to be happening happen. And that's a good thing. That's a really, really good thing. And yeah, it's why the Codex Astartes is such an important and good documentation. Hey Hollow, thanks for following. I can't believe I've been caught red-handed by you simping for the Codex Astartes. And yeah, in the book Dark Imperium, the first books of 8th edition, we see Guilliman basically getting really angry, especially at the Ultramarines in particular, for misinterpreting the direction the Codex Astartes is meant to be taken in. And yeah, he did patch it. He made a Nova Codex, or whatever it's called. A new codex which more explicitly states that a Space Marine chapter is not designed to be separated. You're never meant to split your chapter. If you find yourself in a situation where you need to be in more fields of operation than a singular chapter can provide, you go and fetch another chapter to come and help you. The idea was never to fully split the legions. The legion was still meant to work together in concert, so hilariously, the Dark Angels are actually one of the more closest followers of the Codex Astartes in that sense, as the various chapters of the Unforgiven still work together quite closely, and often work together in cooperation in the same fields of combat. And you see the Plague War and the forces of Mortarion and Kulgath just melt the moment that the Codex Astartes is deployed in the way it was designed, with Guilliman leading multiple chapters of the Ultramarines' successors in a singular field of operation in concert. As Mortarion and Kulgath made the assumption that they're going to be fighting the Ultramarines in the way that Space Marine chapters always fight, and that they could divide and conquer, force certain situations, certain planets to try and draw individual forces out to, split them up and annihilate them in the way that Chaos is really good at. It failed spectacularly for them because Guilliman turned that around. He flipped it back around to how he'd always intended the Codex Astartes to be used. And the united front of 7 or 8 Ultramarine chapters fighting together in the realm of Ultramar was not something they could deal with. And on the single thing that I like about 8th edition is just how they did reintroduce Guilliman once he was back. Like, the actions he did initially take. Like, he did change the Codex Astartes up, he did add more flexibility, he assessed and understood the situation, saw how people were messing things up, and fixed it. Oh god. Thank you so much to whoever that was who donated. It hasn't shown your name. But thanks. Yeah, wow, okay. There won't be any face reveal today. I need to physically go and buy the equipment now for money you guys have incredibly generously donated. Yeah, thank you guys so much. And I did make a stupid promise earlier in Varak's chat that I'd wear cat ears as well for a reveal. Oh god. You guys are amazing people. And far too generous. And yeah, I'm not sure how many of you guys were there, but the other night we did a midnight stream as well, in which I was driving around listening to the synthwave music around the streets of Tokyo in a simulator, and I made the stupid suggestion, how would you guys feel about me being a VTuber? And the guys there seem to be relatively on board with it, so Byron, it does seem like there is a path in which I'm going down. So, you said all the stuff, Tuppy, but what I heard was no face reveal for you, you all got spammed. No, I have a web camera, right? And that's the one for the hobby desk, right? So I have this camera, you know. Hello. I have that one there. But if I were to do face streams, I'd have to physically tear apart that desk setup. I'd have to unscrew a bunch of things in order to then, set it up at my desk in order for me to actually, do regular streams. And I don't want to be having to spend 10-15 minutes unscrewing things and putting things back together every single time I stream. And also, the background to where my desk isn't exactly the most pleasant thing in the world. It's a bed with some boxes on it and stuff. It's quite literally a pile of shame at the moment. And I don't I don't think that makes a good background. I don't have a pretty setup like Valrak copied from Warhammer TV. So I'd also want to get some stuff like a green screen and things, so that's what our donation goal was at the point it is, so I can have the equipment to do it all. And Josie, no, I'm not going to do a waifu big titty anime girl. No, that would never be something I'd do. Yeah, if I were to ever do any, in quotes, VTuber stuff, it will be probably Mechanicum, as when I do play VR chat, which is what most VTubers do actually use. Oh, you know what I should do, Hamish? I need to get a picture of Valrak's background. And I need to put that on the green screen. So I do actually have a, well, it's not custom for me, but I do have a background I do use in some meetings and some other calls when I'm on my laptop and stuff, so I'll probably just use that, which is the inside of a mech. It's mostly designed for Battletech, but it could also be an Imperial Knights. Yeah, I could, Hamish. And yeah, if I did ever get around to making a custom avatar, I probably would try and get Emperor's Children stuff. So you know the profile pic I have on Discord and on YouTube of the little, well, it's a little cartoon drawing of me. What I think I might do is go down that route there, of having the cute little chibi drawings instead of like a proper, fully like 2D, 3D kind of anime, well, boy or girl, and just redraw him wearing Emperor's Children armor. But it would be fun also to have an avatar in a full Bretonian plate as well. I got some really nice emotes done for super cheap on Fiverr. Yeah, I am very lucky in myself for being able to draw stuff which I'm quite happy with, like the chibi drawing of me, which I'm using as a profile pic. Wonderful friends like the one who drew the duck, which I use on Twitch, and then also some very incredibly talented artist friends. Like the guy who draws the who's drawn a couple of memes for Valrak. He does some incredibly talented art. His name is Vicus. He's or I can't remember what it is on Twitter. I should do a better job of shilling and supporting him, but yeah, he does some incredible artwork. He can do that for me as well. And I'm also very good friends, and you've probably seen him around here with Xenook. And whilst he talks incessantly about Necrons, he was actually one of the artists who drew a bunch of the artwork for the If the Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech Device series, like a bunch of the backgrounds, and he also drew the drawing of Sanguinius for the Heretic Burger sketch as well. And yeah, Hollow Destructions, there's got it. Labour Unfall is the name of artist who I'd probably get a bunch of stuff drawn by. And he has offered to help me with some banners and stuff for the channels. Yeah, only if Sarastus is an incredibly untalented artist, I am available. So one of the things I do want to do is I don't really know what to put as my banner on YouTube or Twitch. One of the silly things I was thinking of doing was just turn it into like a sticker bomb, and getting a bunch of different artists, obviously paying them, or if they wanted to submit some fan art, get them to put some to put some artwork on that sticker board, as long as it's, you know, terms of service friendly and relevant to the channel. So if you did feel like you wanted to ever like contribute some artwork towards that, Hamish, as bad as it is, I would be more than happy to celebrate the Looper Cat and add your artwork to that. Yeah. Like, I am very... Yeah, I'm very lucky to be in the position I am because of you guys, and the only reason why this content is so much fun to do, and streaming and doing all this stuff is as fun as it is just because you guys. And if I can do anything to celebrate that and, like, you know, champion you guys, then I will, because that's how I want this channel to be. I'm not necessarily in this to make huge amounts of money. I don't really want to be hugely popular. I guess, as the saying goes, be the change you want to see in the world, and especially in Warhammer, more doubly so in the Horus Heresy, there's just so many negative, try-hard people around, and I really, really don't like that. I don't enjoy how boring and how serious, how negative people are, especially in this hobby and community, generally speaking. Not Valrak's community, but in the community generally speaking. And I want to make this entire channel, this little community, as positive and as nice and as welcoming and as supportive as possible. It's the entire reason why I want to do the Mustering for Legion series, which I have taken this week off of work. And I'm going to be focusing really hard on trying to get episode 2 finished and working on episodes 3 and 4. Just try and get as much out of it as possible and try and get back onto the weekly the weekly upload schedule, which I wanted to have for it. And gee, that's awesome. If you have any artwork you want to show off, then why haven't I done that? You know, I'm going to put an arts and showcase in the text channels in a second. So if you guys do want to show off your artwork, even if it's not Warhammer related and stuff, you can do so there. Okay. Yeah, it's right underneath duck pics. I'm not saying duck pics are more important, but hey, I gotta keep to a brand. So yeah, there you go. There's an art showcase channel. So if you have any artwork you want to show off and talk about, then yeah, you can put it there. And yeah, so in terms of emojis and reactions and stuff, either here on Twitch, YouTube, or on Discord, I'd like to try and keep it as nice as it would be to have just like a set of branded emojis relevant to my channel and this community. I think it would always be nicer if it was, you know, stuff you guys wanted and you guys created. Like, I know it's like very fun to like use your own reactions and emojis on Discord. And yeah, if you guys have something which you think would be funny and usable, and you guys have created it, then we can add it to the Discord server, so you can use it on Discord and the other servers as well if you have Nitro. I think it might be a free feature at this point, but yeah. If you want to do that, then we can do that as well. And Gosu, just seeing the art you put in the Discord server, that is awesome. What I'm going to do quickly is bring that across. Let's have a look. Go over to live. this is the artwork one of Gosu's fans had made from this World of Warcraft character, and I love this. Like, I really love the idea that as content creators, that we can inspire and motivate people to make artwork and to create that spark of creativity and enjoyment. It's honestly one of the things I find really happy and enjoy so much about doing these streams is hearing about you guys saying, "Oh, I want to collect Imperial Knights," or "Wow, okay, oil paints and enamel paints are actually really nice to use. I'm going to start using them now. I want to do them. I very much want to make my community and this channels rather, all about supporting and encouraging you guys to do the stuff you want to do, or to encourage you guys to try new stuff and to experiment and learn what you guys love. For me, my love is for Horus Heresy and Warhammer Fantasy. Those are two settings which, no matter what, I will always love and enjoy and have time for. And if I can share that passion and that enjoyment with you guys, then I'm going to do it. And I am very lucky to be in a situation where I can do this now for you guys. I mean, obviously we don't have a huge amount of support here yet, but we're growing on it, we're working on it, that's why I'm doing these daily streams at the moment. And I'm really loving doing this and trying not to get emotional at the moment. There's a look at the Imperial Knight we've been painting as well on stream. I think Imperial Knights have always been something that have inspired me, and really been very special and sentimental to me. And this first knight we're working on here is just such a melting pot of various memories for me, because it goes all the way back to well, you know what, let's do some Tuppy lore, I guess, right? So I've got my list of Discord servers off to the side because you guys don't need to see that. But yeah, there was a channel and project I made a while ago as a group writing project, back in 2018, to try and make some lore and some ideas for various different houses on a singular night world with a bunch of people, and we tried to create an entire universe and stuff. Oh no, just download the map a second. Is it actually going to render in anything? Ah, there we go. Alright, so yeah, we made a entire fantasy setting for the knights. Just trying to zoom in on the map, but yeah, we went to massive detail on world building, creating this continent with all of these different knight household territories, and going into extreme detail on the history of the world and stuff just for Imperial Knights, just so we could play Imperial Knights. And all of these different houses have their own cultures and identities and histories, and it was a very beautiful project I worked on with some very close friends and good friends. So unfortunately, with some of them we drifted apart a bit, but this is where the knights that I used to have are based on the guys wearing all black armor. The knight we're currently working on to draw this back to relevant to this channel is a knight from House Seret, hence why it was all golden originally, and why we're keeping the gold heraldry on him. Just quickly go to Hobby Hangout a second. Why we got the gold features on him. And why we ended up using the heraldry for a lion on him as well, because we do it from the stream the other day when we were looking at heraldries and the meanings of all the symbols and stuff and the colours. We discovered that lions have to represent bravery, and often used for signs of wealth as well. A dragon would also be really good for this. And yeah, so this is the Kingdom of House Seret. And yeah, they are a very wealthy house, as they are largely in control of this mountainous area here, which is famous for its gold mines. It also happens to be above the area in which the Ark, the ship which brought the colonists here in the first place, crash landed. It crash landed in these mountain ranges. So what formed these mountain ranges here for a large part, and where this valley with the lakes in, is all on top of where the Ark, the ship that brought them all to this planet, is. And Atrium is built right above it, which is the capital city of the Kingdom of House Seret. And yeah, the reason why I originally kind of abandoned this idea is because House Blackstone. So you have to remember that this is lore which me and a friend of mine, we started working on during 6th edition, 7th edition kind of era, when the Imperial Knights first came out. Blackstone was not a thing in the setting, really. There was the obelisks and made out of the obsidian of the Necrons, but it wasn't really called Blackstone. Blackstone never really had a meaning or a point back then. So the ruling house of the planet of Etania, this planet we're looking at, was House Blackstone. Their rulers, as it was discovered, that the bridge of the ship is actually here. Hence why the castle, the capital of Blackstone, is actually called Neuschloss, or Newcastle. Not like the English city, but yeah, you get the point, because it was actually the first area in which the colonists ever settled on the planet. And so they actually hold the spiritual capital and first settlements of the planet. However, for a long time, it was House Windcool, which controlled the, and doesn't look like this map actually has the capital on it. But yeah, the capital of the world used to be down here in House Windcool, as it was believed that this ocean here is actually where the Ark landed, and that the people moved onto land here. This was a lie fabricated by House Windcool during one of their reigns, in order to try and hide and falsely create a claim to a throne for themselves and to try and cement their rule. As only, I guess, a century before the Great Crusade happened, in which the inhabitants of this planet actually worked out the truth of where the ship had landed. The planet has a feral orc population as well, and also a feral, an exodite Eldari population as well, both of which have been gradually pushed back further and further away on the main continent. Yeah, I love making custom lore for things. It's always fun world building for D&D for me. Yeah, absolutely. I'm very much a terminal dungeon master, so doing these kinds of things is, I guess, habit for most part. And yeah, I feel like, especially if you're doing things like the Imperial Knights or Imperial Army for the Horus Heresy, it's so important, just Imperial Guard in general as well. It's so important to do world building correctly in order to create the narrative backstory and the aesthetic of your armies. And with Imperial Knights being so important on heraldries and families, and the importance of all that symbology, and obviously the history behind each individual knight. A knight itself, the physical machine, can have been around for like 22,000 years, potentially. That's so many generations of human pilots could have piloted any knight. Every single pilot will have had his own deeds and heroics or moments of shame and embarrassment, and each individual pilot has carried that knight through so much history and events, and that knight itself will have been shaped by those events, and the colours and liveries each knight wears is again a representation of who that knight is, both as a machine and the pilot within. So I feel, especially for homebrewing and creating backstories for knights, doing this kind of stuff is incredibly important. And if you've ever seen any pictures of my feudal guard army, you'll probably be aware that a lot of them wear green, and that they're all from House Herebrand. Herebrand and Gainsford are two rival powers, only really sharing borders of Arius and Seret, and a very physical geological border with House Blackstone. It's very difficult to cross here because you got the mountains, when you got the moorland, and when you kind of got swamps that leads into kind of nothing up here. And Gainsford are the historic rulers of the land. House Herebrand are a very new and young house. They're the youngest house on the continent, and they were a minor noble household in the Gainsford court who rose to power by marrying into the Gainsford family and fabricating claims, and they just became significantly more popular with the people of the land than the Gainsford family was, which ultimately resulted in a fight for succession over the territory between Gainsford and Herebrand, with the majority of the people siding with House Herebrand rather than House Gainsford, and it ended up with a significant and large civil war, the largest war fought on the planet, with a majority of the people taking up arms and forming a military against a pretty much a pure knight army, with only a handful of Herebrand knights leading huge armies of infantry against the Gainsford knights. And it ended up with Herebrand liberating and claiming most of the land for themselves and creating a new capital in Vethran, and Gainsford being isolated towards the coast, and Mangier being given, effectively control of the rivers and stuff too as a compromise. It's like a Game of Thrones. Yeah, in a sense, yeah. It's one of the things I really, really love about the Imperial Knights is there are two types of Knight worlds. There are the major Knight worlds and the minor Knight worlds. The difference is a major world is one controlled by a Knight household, and a minor being controlled by multiple Knight households. And for me, I've always preferred the idea of minor households. Having, Game of Thrones, but all the main characters are an Imperial fucking Knights. That's just awesome. So yeah, this is the Imperial Knight world which I've came up with. And it's kind of just sat to a wayside for a while now because I've just been so caught up on what do I name Blackstone? Because I can't run with the name House Blackstone anymore, it just doesn't really work. And it's why I got you guys on stream to help me come up with a new colour scheme. Because I need, a large enough sentimental value to kind of overwrite the backstory here present. I'm never going to get rid of this world, I'm not going to change much to it, but I need to come up with a new name for House Blackstone. And part of that was also coming up with a new livery, which coincidentally ended up being black and white. The old colour scheme is cream and black. Actually, give me a moment. I'm going to go and grab the only knight I've ever painted of House Blackstone and put it next to the new knight we're working on. So yeah, here is Elias Blackstone, the very first knight I ever painted and put together. This is one we're currently working on. And yeah, I'm not going to repaint Elias Blackstone, and I'm probably going to keep him as the name Elias Blackstone and run him as a free blade. Yeah. Yeah, he'll be the odd one out going forwards in terms of livery, but I'm okay with that. I really like the concept and the plan we got going for the new colour scheme for the black and white, and the fact we can just really double down on patterns and concepts on them as well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the doing more knights with different patterns and different heraldries to really like sell this look of knights. And yeah, this is have these two. I have a Dominus I'm working on. I have two other Imperial Knights which are half painted towards the direction of Elias in the black and cream, but they'll be very easy for me to convert over, and we'll go through converting because they're basically just base coated in black, and I'll keep the personal heraldry colours the same as we've done with the House Serret Knight on the left there, the black and white. Yeah, so one of the things I was saying on the stream, well, yesterday, about heraldry and why it's important to do things the way we do with the stripes and stuff, but also at the same time that a lot of knights are very simple. Some are just locked out colours, and at the time where I was painting Elias, I wasn't confident enough to really do stripes and patterns. If you look carefully at his shield, whilst it's diagonally painted, that's brush painted. I didn't have the confidence to really go out and do airbrushing with. I didn't even have an airbrush back then. That's all brush painted. Yeah, and decals as well. There's a lot of decals on Elias. And yeah, I've definitely grown as a hobbyist since I painted Elias. And I feel I really hope by the end of painting the House Sterret tonight we can see that. It would be nice to have a more up-to-date showcase model. Yeah, he took a long time. How big are the Knights? Well, what models do I have to compare him to? Oh, I do actually have a Primaris Space Marine on my desk. That's convenient. Wait, that is a Primaris Intercessor. Again, of my own custom Night House. Well, not Night House, Space Marine chapter. And I would like to point out that I came up with this colour scheme and the lore for my purple and white Imperial Fist successor chapters long before Primaris came about and the Sons of the Phoenix came about. In fact, that entire thing is a little bit suspicious to me. Because I had actually talked to Gav Thorpe about the Knight Celestial, my homebrew Space Marine chapter, and he really liked the idea of them. And then the Sons of the Phoenix show up. Granted, by a completely different author and a different creator, but they share so many similarities it's very suspicious. Hey Warpforge, how you doing? And yeah, no, 8th edition, I went into it full guns blazing with full faith I was going to enjoy 40k. And yeah, that's one of a few examples of an easy to build Indomitus. Was it Indomitus? Or no, Dark Imperium Intercessors that I have. As yeah, whilst I am very critical and have pretty low opinions on Primaris, the lore about them and everything, now, I did try really hard to get invested in them and be excited about them initially, and ended up being disappointed, but hey, that's just how life goes. You can't win them all. Yeah, what names did people come up with? As I saw some float around before that. Dark Greystone. Ebon Rock. Yeah, Ebon Rock is probably closest one, I think, to. So, Blackstone's territory is very mountainous and cold. It's in the geographical north of the. Yeah, it's in the geographical north. It's a very mountainous, cold territory. To put it simply and to use references, I guess the best way to describe it is a lot more like Skyrim in its environment. It's probably the way I'd put it. And it's also why the vast majority of the settlements are following the rivers, as it's the only real place in which life grows because of flowing water from the mountains. There are obviously some frontier settlements towards the mountain ranges. But for the most part, they are around the rivers. And yeah, it's like trying to come up with a name to replace Blackstone with, which isn't too out of place. Because we have Blackstone, we have Herebrand, we have Gainsford, we have Windcool, Arius, Serret, Uric, and Baratine. So I need to kind of come up with a name which kind of fits in with that. And these white territories you see here, which aren't part of anything, are independent states, which I haven't really got around to. Hang on, this area is just largely a no man's land with a couple of settlements here, as this area is just so constantly fought over between the Exodites and the humans that no one's really bothered to settle in this territory because, well, settlements are meaningless if they're constantly being attacked. It's also why you see a lack of settlements really in this area towards where the Exodites are as well. With the furthest north Windcool settlement being Berry here, but that's just because it's just such a strategic place on the river, rather than being a productive settlement. Because all this area up here towards the frontier with the Exodites territory is very perfect for growing and living on. It's just so hotly contested between House Windcool and the Exodites. But yeah, so Blackstone is yeah, the awkward one, because I've been struggling to think of a decent name to replace it, which kind of fits in with the oldish English kind of sounding names, but still stands out enough to be the obvious leaders, if that makes sense. It's like House Blackstone, it just sounds strong, it sounds definitive, it sounds serious, and sounds like they would be the knight household which would be leading the other knight households into battle. And what knight do you believe would work thematically with Dark Angel's army? Because I always like to imagine a hulking machine supporting my angels. Anything with melee, I think, because of how strong the Teutonic Knight and Arthurian legends are in Imperial Knights, and especially for the Dark Angels as well. I think the best way to synergize with that would be to throw the to throw a knight with melee capabilities in there, whether that's a knight errant or a maybe a forge-world knight. Like they're expensive, and I'm really looking forward to getting mine. It should be being shipped at the moment. But yeah, I would probably like the one which I'm going for. Sorry for spoilers, but I just want to talk about is the Sarastus Knight Castigator. This is the knight which is going to have the pink heraldry on it. And I think this is a perfect knight as well to go alongside the Dark Angels, as it has just that knightly look to it. It's carrying a huge sword. It has the stature and the pose of an actual knight. It looks like it means business. So yeah, if you have the money and you're willing to, then I would suggest going for a Castigator. It is significantly bigger and significantly more expensive. So yeah, I guess size comparisons. Yeah, the look at the size of the base. That's the same base size as the Knights on the hobby desk right now. So yeah, look how big the bases are on the Knights, and look how they basically fit into the camera. Gonna focus on Elias for a moment here because it's a bit more complete. So you can see he's relatively short on those bases. Compared to the Sarastus Knight, which we'll just jump back to. But Elias's height and profile is burnt into your minds, right? Look how big a Sarastus Knight is. It's a huge, huge model. Yeah, this is also why they're significantly more agile and faster and have the better profile stats as well. So yeah, the Sarastus Knight Castigator is probably my choice. It's the one I personally went for. You know, it's what we'll be doing hopefully this week, if not next week on streams, is we'll be actually building it. But yeah, this is the knight I would choose, especially for Dark Angels, because I just think it looks right, especially if you were to paint up in the colours of the Dark Angels as well, the black and red. I think it would look really good. I know you're already settled on it, but another compelling argument as well would be the Sarastus Knight Lancer. Whilst I don't think it's necessarily too useful, as I feel like the role of Imperial Knight in a Knight army, in a Space Marine army, is to provide the fire support. The Lancer is just such a beautiful looking model. Like, how can you dislike the Lancer? It just has a massive knight, a shield, and one of the really cool things about it as well is, I can see already how droopy it is, but the lance itself is built in segments, so you can actually choose like how far out it's extended. So you can see here on this one, the knight itself is physically extended out quite far, whereas on this one, where it's running forwards, it's actually shorter and closer to its body, in order to, you know, make itself a bit more agile and a bit more practical. And then it has this giant shield on its arm as well. And look at that boy. No worries, Kosu. We'll be here in a bit. I really wish there was a version of this with the were there any houses dedicated to legions and therefore took their colours? Kind of. So at the moment, I think it's kind of strange. Almost every single Dark Angel player I know has decided we're getting Imperial Knights, and they're all going for the same house. Let's just have a quick look. Oh, what's her house called? Okay. If I see it, I'll remember it. There we go. Orlok. So this is one of the Imperial Knight houses that basically fought exclusively alongside the Dark Angels. This is House Orlok. And they have a bit of history as well from Titanicus mainly, but also Book 4 of the Heresy. But yeah, this is the first house which I think of when I think about houses where basically saw fealty to a legion. Not necessarily saw fealty to the legion, but worked alongside and were honor bound too. And basically every single Dark Angel player I know has decided that. And yeah, I would highly recommend you make your own. No, it wasn't Morton. Which was he? It is a nice scheme, yeah, absolutely. I really love the purple and black. It just looks really good. Alright, are there any EC books you'd recommend apart from Fulgrim? I've got a voucher which I'm probably going to use for books. Well, both of the Fulgrim novels. That's confusing, but there's the book Fulgrim from the Horus Heresy series, and there's a Primarch novel series Fulgrim as well. I think, is it called a Phoenician or something? Hold on, I got an Audible. Fulgrim, the Palatine Phoenix, and Fulgrim. Those are both books I'd highly recommend reading. Fulgrim, the Palatine Phoenix details the very beginning of the Great Crusade for the Emperor's Children on their own, and gives you a really good idea of the character of Fulgrim as a person, as well as the how the Legion started under Fulgrim's command. And then obviously Fulgrim, the book from the Horus Heresy series, is also a very good read as it details basically how they got to where they are. I'm gonna head off. Hope the rest of the stream goes well. Night all. Night, Hamish. Hope you sleep well, and I will catch you tomorrow. Depending on what I get tomorrow, hopefully we'll be able to do some stuff. One of the things I'm tempted to do is play the BattleTech strategy game tomorrow on stream, as it's a game which I haven't really played much of. So I think it would be a fun learning experience for all of us if we play through that on stream tomorrow. I'm so tall now. Emperor's Children has Valor and my favourite Primarch. Iron Warriors look super fun to paint and have a rivalry. That was Legion Death Guard are my 40k Legion. Yeah, Doyle, have you considered just doing all three? And I don't necessarily mean that as a joke either. You can take allied detachments. So you could run an Emperor's Children force led by Fulgrim, and you could have an allied detachment of Iron Warriors to work alongside them. In fact, that would actually probably work quite well, because then you could have the fire support elements and long-range weapons of the Iron Warriors to back up your melee-focused Emperor's Children. Or you could spice things up by also doing an allied detachment of Death Guard, and using those instead of the Iron Warriors occasionally. And there's also no limit to the amount of allied detachments you can have, whilst I wouldn't necessarily recommend running multiple allied detachments. Theoretically... Oh my god, we're going to start sounding like Ultramarines here. But theoretical, there is no limit to how many allied successors you allied detachments you can have. Practical, it's not necessarily the best idea to run multiple, because you're paying a lot of points for characters and HQ choices, which aren't necessarily super useful as part of the tax of running that detachment. And Doyle, warning, it's a slippery slope and you will probably inevitably end up doing that. It's like, for me, it's like, again, I already have Alpha Legion and Emperor's Children, and I have at least 2,000 points of both armies. And I plan to continue growing both, because if I do want to run allied detachments of one to the other, I'd like to have that freedom and flexibility to try out different things. I really don't like playing with the same list over and over again. I always want to be trying different stuff and trying different techniques and ideas with every game. So I have a lot more Horus Heresy models than I'll ever realistically use. Yeah, I think so. It's also a fun thing about the collecting the Horus Heresy is, for the most part, almost all of your units for Horus Heresy will be usable in 40k, either for Loyalists or Traitors Chaos or Codex Space Marines. And I think that's like one of the main advantages for people playing Horus Heresy, is that comfort and knowledge that you can almost use your entire army in 40k. Okay, so in the off chance, and I'm going to say off chance because I am starting to get a bit pessimistic towards the 40k game. Yeah, 40k could become fantastic in 10th edition. It could be an incredibly fun game to play that's really enjoyable. And in the event there is, excellent, I already have a large fully painted Space Marine army with models which I can suitably use as alternatives. For example, my Palatine Blades still have their jump packs. I'm not going to remove them even if I can't use them in game. They make for great Vanguard veterans. My Terminators can all be used. I mean, I just have to, I guess, do a bit of proxying and say the spears on my characters aren't power spears, they're power weapons of some kind. And yeah, it's pretty easy to convert a Horus Heresy army into 40k. How big's your Heresy armies? Well, as currently, I have around 4,000 points of Emperor's Children, around 2,000 points of Alpha Legion. I have 4 Questoris Knights and 7 Armigers. I need one more to be able to run all of them, with the Sarastus Knight Castigator on its way to me, and another thing as well for that army. And I'm currently in the process of starting a Mechanicum force as well. At the moment it's just a bunch of tech priests from 40k and Forge World, and a couple of Castellan robots. And finally, I have my Imperial Guard army, well, my Imperial Militia army, which has, last time I checked, 240 individual guardsmen in it, and 9 artillery pieces of Earthshaker or Medusa variety, as well as a Basilisk, And a couple of command squads. I'll see if I can find a picture of the That's the point. Sorry, just trying to find some pictures of my Imperial Guard stuff because I don't think you guys have seen it before. At the point, you might have seen it if you were on Varak's server, because I'm fairly sure I posted pictures there. And if you attended Valfest, you would have seen the artillery regiment I showed up with. I know I've constantly asked this on stream, sorry, but do you have your Aquila in your episode? If so, how do you do it? So it depends on the models. If I can't find a way to put it on the model, like as in if it's not a chest option I have access to, then it doesn't have it. But for the most part, I've been just using torsos from 40k Space Marines with the Aquila. Here we go. Oh, that picture hasn't really aged well. Yeah, so this is from a game of Horus Heresy First Edition a while back. Of my army from Atania with some Alpha Legion. So again, Elias as always. When you have some of the House Herebrand infantry, if you recognize the green from the map. And the black from yeah, here's a better look at the guardsmen for my Imperial Knight World's infantry. So yeah, this is the House Herebrand, well, Gainsford volunteers as it was at the time. So we all have some various combination of the green and black colour scheme, with the black being the dominant colour as the black is the overall colour in which all the armies of the Night World of Britannia march under, because that's what the Blackstone have as their primary colour. At the time I was messing with the idea of calling them House Liefeld, but I just feel like it doesn't have that kind of rank and dominance that I want a knight household name to have. And here's the leader of the militia. As you can see, I was using my older printer at the time. Were Custodies strong in Horus Heresy First Edition? Yes. Yes, they were. They were quite strong. AG, welcome back. And yeah, so this is the men at arms for my Imperial Knight World. And yeah, for the Alpha Legion I use colour shifting paints, which is why they look very blue here, and a bit more purple and darker here, as the light reflecting off them changes the colour they appear. And yeah, Elias Blackstone, and the Rhino is using to run around the Grenadiers with. Which again, these were printed on my old printer, which is why they look awful. I will be completely redoing these guys, and probably just throwing out these ones because of how badly printed they are. But yeah, you get the idea. Yeah, you can see these guys are printed on the newer printer, back before I really learned how to dial in the settings to make them as smooth as the Varak minis. So yeah, this is, again, all of the designs, like the uniforms and stuff, is heavily inspired by by the Night World. So as Gainsford, Herebrand territory, it's basically destroyed itself and is very well known for its very large population, being in a territory of large fertile lands and plenty of river access for transport and stuff, and relatively safe from threats, all things considered. Hey Ghostly, welcome back. Yeah, it has a very large population, and it's one of the reasons why House Herebrand was able to take control so firmly and so decisively, is because they had the will of the people on their side, and it's just the sheer volumes of people allowed House Herebrand to take control of such a large territory from House Gainsford. And yeah, as they are one of the more dominant people centres on the planet, I decided it would be a very good scheme for the majority of my militia to be wearing the green of House Gainsford. Oh, sorry, Herebrand. And yeah, by creating this map and creating this lore, it allows me to have the opportunities to sit down and think, okay, well, how would I customize the regiments that would come from these places? So House Seret being the more powerful and dominating wealthier places, they tend to have a lot more artillery and stuff. So a lot of the artillery regiments, well, a lot of the artillery crew I have in my regiments are wearing the the yellow gold of House Seret, as they're not exactly, they're kind of like the Swiss in a sense. They don't really do much conquest, and they don't really do much fighting unless the fighting comes to them. So a lot of their fighting style is defensive, especially as they have the money to afford the artillery and the bigger guns. So I hope that you have a great night, and I'll see you on the next live stream. Alright, Hugh. Take care of yourself, and yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Do Titan Legios have knights with them as well, or are houses normally separate? Yes and no. So it's one of the fun things again about the Imperial Knights is there's a lot of flexibility and freedom to them. So you have two different allegiances in which Imperial Knights follow. They're either sworn to the Emperor directly, or they're sworn to the Omnissiah. You know, if it's like for the lady, right? It's for the Emperor or for the Omnissiah. Imperial Knight households, which are sworn to the Omnissiah, often end up acting and fighting a lot more like the Titan Legions, and often work in very close relation to the Titan Legions. being, you know, huge stompy robots with a similar command structure and force organization and fitting a similar role, they often end up working alongside the forces of the Titan legions. And yeah, you will often see Knight households painted in the same colours as Titan legions, or Titan legions painted the same colour as Knight households. But you also see, you know, very proud, stronger-willed Titan houses who maintain and retain their colours and still fight alongside Titan legions. I mean, there's those who, then again, just don't. So yeah, it's one of the reasons why I like the Knights, is there's just so much freedom and flexibility with them, because you have everything from, you know, the lonely questing knight for Freeblade who's, you know, gone off on his own, he's been abandoned his household and he fights for honor or duty or for money or whatever it is. He could be a mercenary, he could be on a vengeance quest, whatever, all the way through to, you know, knights working as part of a Titan Legion. Well, if you look at the if you look at the Wikipedia article for Legio Krytos, it'll probably say if there's any Knight households that work with them. And quickly before we move on, I was saying earlier about some of the amazing artists which I'm friends with and lucky to have around. And this is Vicus, or Demon Prince of Hair Metal, or Labour Unfall. And they drew 2 Knights of House Blackstone. Dipping for a night to prep for work. Good stream, Tuppy. Thanks so much for hanging around, Hollow, and hope you've enjoyed the stream, and hope work goes well, and catch you later. If you want to show your thanks, and you want to give them a shout out. Oh, nice, G, you've been posting some stuff as well. This was drawn by Vicus in the Discord server. So if you want to if you want to let Vicus know that you really like his art, then just pop him a message, and I'll be encouraging him to share his stuff more. And where was it? In okay, showcase. He was showing off some of the more Blanche style anatomical drawings he was doing of the anatomy of his Chaos Space Marines. And he goes into such crazy detail, and he is so ridiculously talented. And He's very good at art. Right, let's have a look at what G's been posting. First two drawings from 2007, and that's free when I was 12-year-olds. I don't know any current play. Give my art away, never keep anymore. That's a shame, because yeah, wow. I'm guessing that was a study or reference G? I assume G's still around. Some cartoons and anime stuff here. I like your work, G. Hopefully you take more pictures of stuff you do draw in future. If you get bored of the points. But again, more of Vicus's artwork. So this is again artwork of my Homebrew Space Marine chapter, the purple and white Primaris Marine you saw. And yeah, I went into a weirdly specific amount of detail trying to make these guys religious. That's a point. Oh, where is he? I don't know what's going on, I was correct today. Yeah, and this is the thing, right? I'm probably, like, I know a lot of stuff, and yes, this is a mix of watercolour and inks. Yeah, I know a lot of stuff, but I don't think I'm particularly talented. I just know the theory and apply it. I guess in that sense I'm more like an ultramarine. And I just wish so many of you guys who are just so ridiculously talented with different things are able to get like the spotlight and the attention you guys deserve. So I will always do stuff like this. And yeah, so this is Vicus's drawing of one of my Homebrew Space Marines of the Knights Celestial Space Marine chapter. The writing in the background and you see on the pauldron is written in the real world language of Gothic, and it is a variation of the Lord's Prayer, adapted to be talking about the Emperor and as a battle hymn instead of being about giving us a daily bread and stuff. And yeah, I spent a lot of time translating and learning Gothic simply just to use this. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, and Vicus absolutely blew it out of the park with this incredible watercolour and ink sketch. And well, drawing of my guy in a very John Blanche style, based off a model someone else made, inspired by my chapter. So yeah, if you do enjoy this art, then yeah, please let Vicus know. Yeah, he deserves as much praise and attention as he can get for his artwork. It's just simply incredible. And yeah, if you want to follow him on Twitter, and it's Labor and Fell. Oh, he's also got a Ko-fi. I won't show too much of his work on the on stream because it's not too safe for work, let's say. But yeah, I'll quickly drop links in Twitch and YouTube for you guys if you want to go and have a look at his artwork and support him more, because he definitely deserves it. Alright, G. Have a wonderful night, and I hope you get lots of rest. I'll be streaming tomorrow, so if you want to come out and hang around again, then yeah, I'll be here. And as always, if you need to talk to anyone about anything, then yeah, just message me in DMs or in the channel on the Discord server. Where do I get inspirations from? So it depends really. I'm really into history and I'm really into fantasy, and there's often things like, wow, I think that would make for a really fun idea for a homebrew or concept, and I'll draw from historical or fantasy concepts, or I'll be really attached and find ideas or concepts in the universe which I really like, and I'll build and draw upon them. Or if there's something I like but not quite perfect for me, I'll be like, okay, well, how can I do that in a way which I'll enjoy? And I'll then look at that and see what I want to change and like what twists I can put on that to make it something that's a bit more interesting to myself. So in the case of the Knights Celestial, they started off as a Dark Angels chapter originally, as the first Space Marine Loyalist Space Marine army I ever collected was Dark Angels in 6th edition 40k with the Dark Vengeance box set. But I never really was fond or grew attached to any of the chapters. The closest I got to really liking a chapter was the Guardians of the Covenant chapter, because I really liked their plain silver armor with the black shoulders with a simple symbol on, and then the red robes. They just wore robes, and it just looked really cool and really standing out whilst being incredibly plain and simple. And that really resonated with me, but I couldn't really get myself attached to them or the Knights or to the Dark Angels in general. So I was like, okay, well, how can I spin this? What changes could I make? And I then decided, because at the time I was starting on about the Horus Heresy and stuff as well, I really liked the Emperor's Children, and I then was like, okay, well, what would a successor to the Emperor's Children look like in the in 40k? And what kind of changes and what kind of impact would the Heresy have had on them as a force, and like how would they have shaped up? Like, what would they have become? And at the time I was also playing a lot of Medieval 2 Total War and stuff. And it struck me as like, well, a lot of people in time of crisis and desperation have really lost themselves and their identity, turned to faith. And so the idea came about, like, well, what would religious Emperor's children be like? Well, if the Emperor's children went down the path of the ecclesiarchy and, became crusaders. As I also think that the Emperor's children especially do share a lot of similarity to the Knights Templar, and their fall in particular, because if you aren't aware, the Knights Templar were destroyed as an order after they were allegedly exposed for committing all sorts of horrific sins, including, well, being gay and, hiring prostitutes and taking drugs and stuff, all the stuff which is sins and against religion. And, well, that sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it? And I've always found religion a very interesting thing from someone who isn't religious, and how people try to cling to faith for reason and to help understand and to guide themselves both spiritually and for moral guidance. And so I kind of used the Knight Celestial as a way to explore the concept of religion, really, and how that impacts people. So the Knights Celestial themselves are caught between the truth of who they are, in a similar way to the Dark Angels. The great sin, the secret that only the Inner Circle knows, is that these guys are Emperor's children's successors. They are loyalist Emperor's children who just basically hung out in the realm of Ultramar during the Heresy and survived. And how they turned to faith as a way of masking their identity, because who would question or try and challenge the ecclesiarchy over the loyalty and honesty of some of their premier warriors. As a second founding chapter with close ties to the ecclesiarchy, it's not exactly a force you would necessarily question or try and point fingers at. So they embraced religion quite heavily and were very committed to it and became essentially crusaders and very religious in a way to the Black Templars in a sense as well. And it led to some issues as their homeworld, I decided, was as a fun thought exercise, would actually be the planet of Laren. Having it be exterminatist, but not rendered inhospitable and converted into a shrine world instead, as a frontier world at the fringe of the Imperium. And the Knights Celestial took it as their homeworld. And they are now the wardens and protectors of this shrine world, and their whole religious duty as defenders, in the same way that the Knights Templar are the defenders of Jerusalem, the Knights Celestial are the defenders of Aerfa, which is the new name for Laren, as it was redesignated to try and cut ties and shroud the darker history of the Heresy. Aerfa as a name is the Gothic, a real-world Gothic word for heaven, by the way. And so my Knights Celestial are the wardens and protectors of the shrine world of Aerfa. However, this caused a bit of a schism in the Knights Celestial, with a significant portion of the chapter starting to grow very uneasy and restless. They felt like their duty and their role as Space Marines was being wasted, being set to, guard a planet which was basically not seeing any conflict. Occasionally some Emperor's children would show up to try and reclaim the planet. Occasionally there'd be some orcs and maybe some hiding of the Tau, but otherwise there wasn't really any significant conflict, and the chapter was starting to grow a bit restless. And so the chapter had a successor chapter founded, called the Knights of Saint Beaucoud, who take their name from the first chapter master of the Knights Celestial, and carry his hammer into battle and have it as their chapter symbol as well. And they very much focus on protecting pilgrim fleets in the same way that the Hospitallers, both in history and the Hospitaller Space Marine chapter, do. And as a callback to the kind of exploration and development of the Knights Celestial as a chapter, they wear plain silver armor with purple shoulder pads with a simple white symbol of the hammer on it, and they wear robes over the top of it in the same way that the Guardians of Covenant do. Aerfa, it's not quite like that. It would actually be on the screen somewhere. And yeah, Breach is one of the things we're exploring, so following the more like noble altruistic elements of the Space Marine chapter leaving to form the Knights of St. Beaucoud, the very more prideful and I guess the best word to use, conservative members of the Knights Celestial, the ones who are very proud of tradition and their role and honour and glory of being the chapter, you know, the proud sons of Fulgrim who stood defending the planet and doing their sacred duty, became ever more prideful, and they started to really struggle with, you know, balancing duty and pride, you know, being faithful and loyal to the God Emperor and their own personal pursuits, desires and interests, whilst not being Zaneshi and hedonistic in any real manner. The Knights Celestial still had those, like, just that, you know, natural human urges to, you know, go and perfect things. Like this guy here. This guy isn't any special character necessarily in the chapter, but he still, you know, he spent a great deal of time making his armor ever more glamorous. He's even forsaken the use of a bolt gun or a bolt pistol even, and he's dedicated to fighting the sword and perfecting his sword fighting skills. And that element of pride has creeped back into the chapter since the Knights of St. Beaucoud were founded, and the more, you know, pure of motive, characterless individuals who had dedicated themselves so purely to a faith left. Double checking the spelling because I can't remember if I put any weird characters into the name. No, so the planet's name is that Aerfa. So Aerfa. So yeah, this is one of the other homebrew projects I've done for 40k. Another one, I'll see if I can find some artwork for it, is a Space Marine chapter, which I called the White Bears, which again is another like one I did more as a proof of concept, but ended up getting a bit carried away with. Yeah, so this is the White Bears chapter, which is a Raven Guard successor chapter, and this is what my Phobos Space Marine army, because yes, I do have one, is based on. And they were entirely created as a exercise in taking a historical faction and putting it into 40k in a more interesting, more unique way than I see other people doing it. And yeah, so these guys are based off the Finnish army during the Winter War against the Soviet Union during World War II. And so the colour scheme they're wearing is the white and green. So white represents the snow and the green represents the pines and the trees in which the Finnish soldiers hid. What is their opinion on Shuriken? Well, I do have a Shuriken model for this army. Here's a very old picture of my Shuriken model for them. I did a very basic conversion. I removed the heraldry from the center of his torso and just gave him a Mark IV helmet. And yeah, so this was just basically an exercise in just directly taking history and converting it into 40k. And yeah, so the Space Marines are the Finnish army, and the Tau took the glorious role of representing the Soviet Union. Not necessarily because the whole Tau communists thing, but simply just because geographical location. I needed a army which was technological and not just oh yeah, I'll say we'll get more into it, but it's not just because Tau communist, because that's stupid and nonsensical. But yeah, so for White Bears, came up with them based off the Finnish War, well, the Winter War, and they represent the Finnish. So the idea is, lore-wise, they are a 26th founding chapter, so the last regular Space Marine founding chapter before the Ultima founding. And they were basically instantly founded and deployed straight to a frontier world under attack from the Tau. So this was before they had any serious amount of training, and they weren't even fully equipped with the amount of resources needed to really fight properly and effectively. So they were basically sent off to die, in effect. And on the frontier world, it's considered a death world because of how cold and inhospitable it is. There was a human population there, and they were forced to break the Codex Astartes, break with the training and traditions from the Raven Guard, in which they're drawn from, and adapt and learn how to fight and survive on the planet, which would kill them, even in power armor, from the locals. And so they quickly learnt and adapted to the way the locals fought. And in many cases, they operated and merged in to mixed units with the Planetary Defense Force on the planet, and would focus on trying to capture and utilize the Tau weapons and vehicles against them. So there was a lot of captured Tau vehicles and Tau pulse rifles and stuff that were used. It was only later on, into the third year of the conflict, that any real Imperial reinforcements arrived in the form of a Imperial Guard tank regiment and some more heavier assets were brought in to help the Space Marines and the Planetary Defense Force fight off the Tau. And this in turn is a reference to how the Germans sent a bunch of Stugs and Panzers over to the Finnish in order to help them fight off the Soviet Union. And before that, they were stuck using Soviet Union vehicles and weapons against the Soviet Union for the most part, because they didn't have the resource capabilities to make their own equipment. Yeah, so guerrilla warfare campaign against Vital, exactly. And it led to a situation where where the White Bears were very, very skilled in guerrilla warfare and very adept at killing Vital. And this put them into a situation where they were incredibly undermanned and under-resourced, and fresh off a victory against Vital when the Primaris reinforcements came, when the Torchbearer fleets found the planet and brought them Primaris reinforcements and gave them the technology to, make their own Primaris from the locals. The planet in which they are from is called Koti, which means Earth in Finnish. And they have a lot of Finnish names, which is why I'm trying to avoid naming individuals, because I'm not going to try and speak Finnish. And it makes sense for the guerrilla warfare specialists to adapt to Arctic warfare, guerrilla warfare, and it's why their Raven Guard successors, I mean, overall, their parent chapter doesn't really matter too much for context of things. So in this case, I just decided, well, they're Raven Guard. And yeah, there was that as well. Yeah, the Finnish did make weapons at 5 with 7.52 Russian. But yeah, overall, for the purposes of converting this into 40k, they just started to use pulse rifles and pulse carbines and ion cannons and whatever they could get their hands on from killing Vital. And when the Primaris arrived, they were initially incredibly hesitant because obviously the combat doctrine that goes into 8th edition, first wave Primaris, like the Inceptors, the Intercessors, and the Aggressors, doesn't really mesh well with their way of fighting. But what they quickly learnt was that they could use it as a distraction force, because obviously Vital are very, very, very good at killing Codex-compliant Space Marine chapters. They've developed an entire doctrine and strategy around fighting those types of people. And like we saw in the Damocles Gulf Crusade, it's why, for a start, the White Scars and Raven Guard were so successful against Vital, because they don't follow the Codex Astartes and fight in such a nonsensical, aggressive, and pointlessly suicidal way that Vital just couldn't rationalise and understand why anyone would do something as stupid as those two chapters do. But what the White Bears started to do was they were using their Primaris forces in regular battle line ways, allowing the Primaris forces to fight as expected, in order to give the Firstborn Marines and Planetary Defense Force infantry the opportunity to flank around, outmaneuver, and harass and encircle the Tau forces. As obviously, if the Tau left the main battle line forces of the Primaris unchecked, then they'd have a serious force of firepower assaulting them and attacking them. And it's significantly easier for them to go after these larger standard battle forces they know how to fight than it is for them to try and, spot the sniper in the forest. And so they used that to their advantage, and when the Phobos Marines and, the more stealthier units of the Primaris forces were started to be deployed, the White Bears really started to excel, as we're able to put those Primaris forces of the in Phobos armor to full use, as it allowed them to merge really well into their well-established, at this point, tactics and strategies that they developed over years working with the Planetary Defense Force and the people of Koti to fight against Vital. And with how much easier it is to make Primaris Space Marines than regular Firstborn Marines as well, it led to a huge surge in Koti inhabitants being turned into Primaris infantry, which really bolstered and turned the White Bears into a chapter which is now very strong and very capable in the current timeline, as they are forged in the fire, with basically the perfect materials to make them into a lethal weapon. And yeah, I think overall I've managed to do a pretty good analogy of how the Finnish developed from World War II onwards in making these guys in that sense. It's like after World War II, the Finnish army was given a strangely a large amount of Soviet weapons and equipment to use, and they're one of the only Western nations to have MiG-21 jet fighter. For some reason, people still don't quite understand how that works. But it was only really once they started getting proper NATO equipment and resources during the Cold War and in the modern day that the Finnish army has turned into such a deadly and powerful fighting force. And I've used the Primaris as an analogy for that NATO reinforcements. So yeah, whilst this has been a hugely tangential and long-winded way around it, this is how I draw inspiration and develop from concepts and ideas. This entire chapter, with a detailed backstory and some world building thrown in, just came from the idea of like, what if Finnish Sniper as Space Marine? That was a conversation I basically had with a friend at college when I was still a teenager, and I just managed to turn it into something that works, and it's been really fun, and they're one of my favourite armies I've ever really worked on. And yeah, back to the Shrike model briefly. As awful and as low res as this picture is, you can see I've got my Shrike standing on a dead Tau, and this Tau is actually a special Tau model to me sentimentally because it was one of the very first Tau models I ever painted back in 5th edition, as I was trying to work out colour schemes and ideas for how to paint my own Tau army, because I did collect Tau for 5th, 6th and 7th edition. It's only in 8th edition when my partner picked up 40k that they decided they wanted to play Tau, and I decided, they can have them. And yeah, so it just happened with my Tau that I was going for a more cold Arctic woodland kind of camouflage, and I never really left my mind. So with this Tau Fire Warrior, this is one of the ones I painted up my test scheme for green in, for the darker green, like pine green colour scheme in a snow situation. And once I fully committed to doing the white bears as a army to collect on the tabletop, I reposed and cut him up a little and put him on the base of the model as a reminder of that original plan and idea, as well as being it's a reference and a reminder of the progress of this whole concept. And wait, is Shrike Shuriken? I mean, he may as well be, to be honest, as they are basically the same character, just same character written twice in different settings. Are you guys aware of what a Shrike bird is, by the way? Because I do find that in itself rather amusing. Because, yeah, they're just a bird I cannot take seriously. They're just so funny. So yeah, they are these little, like, I guess murder goblins is the only real way to put it. But yeah, they're these tiny little birds. They're so small and cute and adorable. They look like grey tits, right? They're very adorable and cute. But what they do is they find prey that's roughly the same size as them, grab them, pick them up, and impale them on the spikes of trees. Like so, or barbed wire nowadays, because and wait for it to die, and then pick at it once it's hung. And catch you later. Have a good night, and yeah, I'll catch you tomorrow. It's Shrike as a character is actually a good reference, and it's like why I kind of have this mentality of going into excess amounts of detail. Right, what weapons does Chapter Master or Captain Kaiven Shrike use? Yeah, well, they are dinosaurs. But yeah, what weapons of choice? Well, what are the weapons of choice for Kaivan Shrike, Captain or Chapter Master of the Raven Guard? No, he doesn't use tree branches. Okay, as none of you guys seem to be able to recall, Kaivan Shrike's weapon of choice is a pair of lightning claws, which he uses to impale his enemies on before flying up into the sky and letting them drop. That's his preferred way of killing, if he isn't having to, do any assassin-y nonsense. Oh yeah, his way of killing is impale you onto a impale you on his lightning claws, fly up and let gravity pull you down off the claws, which is very similar to how the Shrike bird does things, isn't it? And yeah, this bird, will pick and use whatever it can to impale its enemy. Well, yeah, pick up whatever it can to impale and eat. In this case, as the Times was able to get. Well, Simon Lester was able to take a picture of. This one had actually taken a little vole. But yeah, it's oh, well, that's just depressing. It's using a robin. Wow. Yeah, murder hobos of extreme brutality. But yeah. It's this kind of weird details and clever tie-ins and references to historical or real-world references, which I absolutely love in Warhammer, and what I'm trying to do with all of my stuff. And, you know, that's a really good segment and case study on, you know, how to tie in real-world inspiration into 40k. This guy's called Shrike, he impales things, and he flies around. He is a Shrike. And they also have, you know, the beautiful... Yeah, they also have this, like, beautiful black and white colour scheme as well. And if we have a look at Captain Shrike, the old model for Shrike, you can see that there is a bit more of a reference to an element of it on him. Right, all this talking has made me quite thirsty, so I'm going to just take a quick break to go and grab a drink and perhaps a snack, and I'll be right back with you guys. Okay, I am back. I'm glad to see no shenanigans happened whilst I was away. But yeah. What do you guys want to talk about now? Also, I'm really sorry if you hear food sounds, but I'm kinda hungry. So I'm snacking on some leftovers. That's up to me. Well, I don't know what to talk about because there's so many things I enjoy talking about and happy to talk about. Not really sure which things you particularly want to hear me talk about. So, no. Do you know about the Black Prince's campaign against the French and who would suit that story in 40k? So you mean like the shenanigans during the 100 Years' War, Doyle? I suppose we can tie planning an army into this conversation as well. Once Byron's clarified. So the first forces that come to mind for me personally would be the Imperial Fists. I think they would probably be the best, I guess, reference and basis for a force themed around Black Prince. As I suppose a lot of his victories, well, the victories of the English during the 100 Years' War, were down to precise and devastating firepower. And of the Space Marine chapters of 40k, I think it would have to go to the Imperial Fists, especially for that twist of like knightly honor and duty that the Imperial Fists have. Although, then again, you could also apply it to any other Space Marine chapter in a sense, as the core themes to like really build on from the Black Prince is, you know, noble stands against the odds using brilliant firepower to devastate an enemy which wasn't necessarily expecting it. Which again is why I'd suggest Imperial Fists. But also Dark Angels would fit that as well. Especially if they're expecting to, you know, fight for Ravenwing, and then you have a lot of Devastator squads show up with Plasma. And now we're talking, it's Prince Edward, wasn't it, during the 100 Years' War? Yeah, Prince Edward. Oh god, it's just occurred to me Sigismund is Prince Edward, isn't he? Prince... Oh god. That's a reference, isn't it? Especially when you look at this artwork, it's quite obvious. Oh god. And you know what? Let's humour this and run with this as an example for building an army, right? Let's say we're going to build a Battle of Cressy inspired Imperial Fist army. So let's get a Battle Scribe open. Although realistically speaking, the English are the traitors during the 100-Year War, so we're trying to break away from the French Empire. Hey Connor. So we're doing a thought exercise at the moment of how would you fit the Black Prince from 100 Years War into 40k? And I came to a realization that the Black Prince is just Sigismund. And Doyle asked a question of how you plan an army. So this is a very good example, I think, actually, of how I personally plan armies, because I do not plan armies based off what's strong and what's the meta. I always like to go for a theme or an inspiration. So, in this case, we're building our army around Sigismund in the style of the Battle of Cressy. So, defining things here is incredibly strong defenders and small elite infantry units backed up by very powerful and devastating fire support. And we'll take the Huskarls just because I feel like they make a lot of sense here. And you have to excuse me for a moment. I need to go and grab the book for Loyalist Space Marines. So we can have a look at the rights of war and see if we can come up with anything that suits the style of army we're building. So I'll be back in a moment. No shenanigans, okay? Okay, I'm back. What's the best transport for that? A flyer or a tank? For what, sorry? And where's the music on? Oh. Oh, there we go. So, first let's have a look at the Imperial Fists and their rights of war. See which ones would fit. As hilariously, I think the Stone Gauntlet would probably be a really good choice for this one. I have come up, for getting the melee units into combat, a Land Raider. So the thing to remember is that you're trying to look for a vehicle with the assault, the assault vehicle special rule, which allows you to charge on disembarkation, but when you disembark from the vehicle. Things like the drop pod and the termite assault drill do not have the assault rule, meaning you can't charge on the turn you get out of the vehicle. So I personally use my Spartan as my main delivery device for elite infantry. Okay, so what we're going to do with this army, unfortunately the Horus Heresy rules on Battlescript don't support this, but we're going to use the Templar Assault Right of War. And whilst we, one of the strong things about it is you gain 2 attacks on the charge when charging out of a vehicle in this Right of War. We're not going to focus on vehicles and transportation in this one because that's not what we're going for. It's a nice thing to have, but we're not going to build an army around it. We're actually going on the defensive, especially as this Right of War doesn't stop us taking fortifications, and I think fortifications in this case might actually be a good idea. So a defense line would actually be very thematic here. And we have to take a couple of units of Templar Brethren to fill in our main infantry. So we'll take those. Brethren. So we cannot have, we must have equal amounts of troop choices to the amount of elite and fast attack we have, which is interesting. There's no limit on heavy support. So what we're going to do is, as Imperial Fists, we are going to spam the crap out of heavy supports. And yeah, we'll get on to snipers in a minute, Byron. So what we'll do is we'll get a heavy support squad. And because we're Imperial Fist, we can take the Elastus Assault Cannon, which is special to the Imperial Fist. Another reason why I think the Imperial Fists are good for doing this, because this is a weapon which is unique to them. The Elastus Assault Cannon is Strength 6, AP 4, Rending 6+, but malfunctions. What we'll do is we'll take 2 units of those. And we want something with a bit more punch as well as a heavy support option. Oh, it's a radio. There we go. And we'll keep it with the Anvilus autocannons because they suit the Imperial Fist. Hey, Sorian, welcome back. It's really unfortunate actually because you missed out on me talking about religious stuff in 40k and how I've personally done it in the past. But don't worry, if you go onto YouTube in a few hours, once this stream's over, you'll be able to watch back. So I won't go over it now, but remember, all of these streams are always uploaded to YouTube. And hey Josie, we are going back over the we're going over how to build a list for Horus Heresy, of trying to replicate the theme and feel of the Battle of Cressy, notably with the Black Prince, and with a realization that the Black Prince is just Sigismund. So we are building a suggestive list for playing Imperial Fists, using Sigismund as the main character, using the Templar Assault Rite of War, but building it as a defensive army to represent and recreate the feel of Battle of Cressy. Okay, never mind, it has just occurred to me we can't use fortifications, which is a shame, as they do not have a Legionia Astarte special rule. So I have to leave them out for now. So we have Sigismund and a unit of Huskarls in this list so far. So Huskarls are fun because they have power swords and storm shields, making them a very good elite unit. And they make for a very good bodyguard for Sigismund in particular. As yeah, a vigil storm shield gives you a 3+ invuln save, which is not to be overlooked at all. Whereas Templar Brethren don't have a shield. They just have their 2+ save, and that's it. So they're not as good as a bodyguard. So you want to take Huskarls as your bodyguard. And also, come on, we're running knights with power swords. I feel like the guys with shields should be considered a bit more elite in this situation, as daft as that is. And with the Huskarls as well, Huskarl Master, what would actually be a good idea is to give him a Solarite Gauntlet. So it's a Strength 10 AP 1, and it will allow him to just hit things really hard. And you can also sprinkle in a couple of Solarite Gauntlets throughout the unit as well, as Sigismund will always be doing the challenges anyway. You can focus on making the unit a bit more versatile and a bit more harder hitting. So bear that in mind, and this is one of those things where we're free to do what we want without breaking the theme and style of this army. I got that in. What we're probably going to do... Oh, a champion can take a combat shield. Oh, the entire unit can take combat shields. Probably a good idea. Okay, anyway. Yeah, I'd run them with, and good night, Breacher. Yeah, have a wonderful night. I hope you sleep well, and I'll catch you tomorrow. I will be streaming again tomorrow, hopefully earlier in the day, although it does depend on what the chapter master is doing. And Josie, this is Battlescribe. It's an app which is probably best on your phone or tablets, but that is a not very well done, a bit awkward to use version for the computer as well. It runs on Mac, Linux, and Windows. Although there's been a bit of controversy recently about it. No, you are limited. So we're still limited by the Crusade list. So a reminder of how the Crusade. So every army must have, at the very least, a HQ choice and 2 troop choices. You can have up to 6 troop choices, 4 elite choices, 3 fast attack, 3 heavy support, a fortification, and a Primarch. And you can have up to 3 characters as well, 3 HQ choices, with an option of taking a Lord of War, so like a Knight or one of the large special vehicles, and an allied detachment as well, so in a different army. The rite of war we're using, so a special set of rules to influence and add flavour to the army, which we're allowed to take because we are taking Sigismund, who has the Master of the Legion special rule, is the Templar Assault, which allows us to take the Templar Brethren as troop choices, but they must be the bare minimum 2 we take, and as many extras as we want. Up to the 6. And for every, and in total, we can have, as many elite and fast attack choices combined as we do troop choices. So in this instance, as we have 4 Templar Brethren units, we can take 4 elite or 4 fast attack, or like 3 fast attack and 1 elite, and so on. Do you have to buy Battlescribe? No, it is a free resource, and I would heavily recommend that you do not buy a subscription and that you do not support Battlescribe. As the money that goes into Battlescribe goes directly to the guy who made the app and not to the guys who actually maintain and run the application or provide all of these resources, like all of the rules for all the units and stuff. The guys who actually contribute and work on this app do not see any of the money, so I would not recommend you spend any money on the application. And until that changes, my opinion will be to do not give Battlescribe any money, but continue to use it as an excellent community-driven resource. Yeah. Last year, the guy who created the app made $120,000 US. And he has not given any of that back to the community, which has maintained the app. And some people said, well, that's just business, you know? He created the app, he's making a profit. The thing is, the whole point of the support Battlescribe here is to generate the money to help develop the app. This application has not had an update since 2018. On iOS, it hasn't had an update since 2017. It was recently pulled from the Apple App Store as an abandoned application, and it was scheduled to be removed from the Google Play Store in a few months as well. The guy who created it has then suddenly, out of the blue, after 3 years of not being in contact with anyone, showing up like, hey guys, sorry, I kind of accidentally let the bank card associated with my account expire, which doesn't add up because that doesn't explain why it was pulled from the App Store, and has since made a minor change to the application on mobile in order to get it back on the App Store for people to download, so we can continue to throw money at him for not doing anything and not actually putting any money in. So to explain how this app works is there's a bunch of GitHub repositories. People make GitHub repositories for different game systems, and you synchronize the application with those repositories. These repositories are community made and not at all tied to the developer of this application. So yeah, these are all community made repositories for all sorts of different game systems. And you synchronize the app with the game systems you want to build army lists for, and it allows you to make army lists for them based off the community made code and the community inputted rules and points. And people have made repositories for basically every single game, and more games that I'm not even familiar with here as well. So yeah, none of the stuff that you actually use and interact with, other than the actual UI of the application, was made by people who've got the money. Only the user interface and physical look of the application was made by the guys making the money. All of this information, the Templar Brethren, all of this stuff you've seen on the side here, heavy support, fast attack troops, all of this was inputted by members of the community. All of this is contributed by members of the community completely for free. All of these options on the side here, this is all programmed by the community. Yeah, the ability to tick this app to give the champion a combat shield, done by the community. And the community doesn't get any money back for it. But if you support the application, the guy who designed the physical app does get money, and he hasn't done any development or changes to the app in 5 years. And the last major change he made was basically to scam for people who had actually bought a lifetime license. Because that's another controversy of Battlescribe as well, which has recently resurfaced. We're currently on version 2.03 at the moment, as you can see on the top of the Battlescribe window. And when the Battlescribe app was in version 1.5, the guy who created the application sold lifetime licenses to the app, which would guarantee you the permanent additional features that supporting would give you. So you can save units as favorites to quickly reference them. You can customize unit names, add notes, and stuff like this. And you could buy a license for the application in order to be able to do that ad infinitum, with the implication that you'd get updates to the application and it would work forever. And then we had patch 2.0, in which he announced that the lifetime license you bought was only attached to version 1.5, and going forward that is changing the business model for the application from being this lifetime licenses to a subscription-based service, which it currently is. And that if you bought the lifetime license, cool, you got the lifetime license for 1.5, but thanks to changes in version 2.0, the 1.5 application may not be able to read the databases in the same way anymore, so you might start to face difficulties and issues trying to build lists in the version 1.5 application. It's highly recommended that even if you did buy a license, you upgrade to version 2.0 and start paying the subscription service to have those features you just bought a lifetime license for. The thing that really annoys me is, sorry we've gone on a tangent away from building the army list, but let's just, okay, so here's the GitHub for Battle Scribe for 40k. Right, here's where all the data for 40k Battle Scribe stuff is found. Let's choose let's use the Imperial Knight one. So we can just come in here. And you'll see here, this is it. It's an XML spread. It's XML. It's just a bunch of code in here. Alright, Nighty night, Byron. Hope you have a great evening. But yeah, all Battlescribe does is it reads this cat file, which is basically just an XML database, and converts it into a user interface that's accessible and readable. Right, that's all the Battlescribe app does. All of this here has been written and edited and contributed to by the community and has nothing to do with the guy who makes the application. So it's whizzing through, but you get the point, right? Yeah, people have gone to the effort of converting all of the rules from the codexes into stuff here, and you can see who the people are who have been adding stuff here. And we can also see a change log as well. So like what people have changed, what people have fixed. You can see what they've done. And all of this. Right, this is all community done. The guy who owns this, Amis92, wasn't present there in the list of people who actually contributed to this file. Yeah. Oh, he is actually there. Okay. So he has contributed at one point to this. Oh, all he did was add the a line of code. So yeah, the only thing he's actually done to all of these codes is change a single line of text on line 2 of each of these documents to update it to say what the version is and the bit of line needed to get it onto the application. That's the only thing he's added and changed to any of these things. Out of the 10,000 lines of data that made up the Imperial Knights entry, he added a single line to make sure that to point the code at his application. And yeah, it said I'll get nothing when I do all the work. Yeah, it does have Age of Sigmar, killed him 40k. That's yeah. Wikipedia is a decent resource if you're playing that. Hey man, can I ask your opinion on something? It's about the color scheme of my Titan. Yeah, sure, go for it. Remember, you can post stuff on the Discord server. If you're, yeah, you are there, aren't you? Yeah. No, I didn't see your name in the online list. I was confused for a moment. Cool. Oh, and a reminder for anyone who's doing Imperial Knights. I did put in the Discord server the reference I was using for how to plot in where the important colours on your knight go. And it's basically what the this is based on. So this is taken directly from the codexes. And yeah, using House Terran as the example here. Good enough. Night everyone. Have a lovely night, Connor, and I'll see you tomorrow. And Sorian, the template I used to draw the well, to fill in the color scheme is here. It's in the Knight Project channel on the yeah, it's in the Knight Project channel on the Discord server. Okay, I'm wondering if I should paint the trim on the rest of the chain for gold or keep it as it is. Ooh, that's a good question. I guess it depends on the context of the rest of the mini. Are you keeping with the dark? Are you going to keep with the darker gold everywhere else, or? And are the old Resin Emperor's Children heads any good, Tuppy? Yes. Yes, they are definitely good. I've been sprinkling them in, and I use the old ones as the sergeant heads on all of my models. Gold is the main trim color. Okay, because I can see for part of the night on background. Is that also going to be painted gold, or are you going to leave it bronze? So I feel like I need to see the greater context of the model for this one. You know, I was thinking when I was looking at the that I honestly prefer the darker bronze, but looking at the rest of the model painted up with the gold, I quite like it. I think, yeah, the gold trim should carry on down over the black. I haven't actually got around to using the heads just yet, Doyle. So it's still on the spray. And to describe it, he has a very short hairstyle. It's kind of messy. That looks alright. Yeah, I normally try and find inspiration for the heads and try to find ones that look great. It's like why that one noise marine I have is has the Shrike head, as well as it's kind of funny. It does fit the model quite well. Yeah, as silly as it is, that Shrike head does work really well on a noise marine. Are those printed parts? Yes. As at the moment I'm trying to work out if I do actually want to run noise marines or not. So I found some suitable 3D printed parts, and I'm using those to convert some marines to test run using noise marines before I decide whether or not I'm actually going to buy some noise marines, because I do really like the Forge World ones. But unfortunately, let's just shop online, Forge World. Is a 5-man squad of Cacophony is 46 quid. It's quite expensive, especially for a unit as small and as relatively cheap as they are. So I want to know if they're actually something I want to be running before I commit to buying some. So the power of a 3D printer, I can find out. And yeah. In an ideal world, I'd like to get to a point where I can use the use streaming and the donations and memberships and ad revenue in order to fund the hobby like Varrock does. But until then, I have to spend my own money, and yeah, it cost a lot to make a an Emperor's Children force with the elite units on Forge World. But at the same time, I think I've done a relatively good job of making some convincing looking. And yeah, Chapter Master Varrock head. It does look a lot nicer now because I did dissolve and I did reactivate the glue on him to fix that, make it look a bit less messy. And I really adore this head for Noise Marines, which is taken from a regular Space Marine Tactical Squad, by the way. The regular 40k one, that is. Ooh, yeah, this has just given me an idea. Tomorrow, on stream, instead of playing Battletech, we will do a stream of me painting these models. I'll do a painting tutorial on how I do my Emperor's Children. That's what we're going to do tomorrow. Go. Big brain plays here. What time? I want to try and start around 2 o'clock British time, so that'll be in 11 hours time. But my loyalty first is to Chapter Master Varrock, and he said that he was considering doing a earlier stream during the day. So if he's streaming around that time, then I won't, and I'll stream in between his two streams because he'll be doing one in the evening to cover the Nova Open stuff. But yeah, we'll see how things go. As unfortunately for me, Josu, almost all of my viewership is split between, well, is from Chapter Master Varrock's community. So if he's streaming, then I can expect that everyone's going to be there, and I'm one of his main moderators for his live streams. So I need to be there to look after his chat and stuff. So I can't really stream at the same time he does. Because someone needs to look after his chat. So yeah, I won't stream at the same time Chapter Master Varrock does, just because, yeah, again, I share the same community with him, and yeah, I have responsibilities, obligations to look after his chat for him whilst he's streaming. But yeah, I definitely will be streaming. I want to stream every single day this week. And I ideally want to start streaming around 2 o'clock in the afternoon onwards. So that's like the best time for me to stream, personally. That's British time. So yeah, we'll see. And speaking of time, I think I will call it time on this stream today. Yeah. To be honest with you guys, it's been a very tough day for me personally, and this evening has been absolutely wonderful. I've really enjoyed being here and chatting with you guys. And yeah, you guys, helped me out a lot, not just with the insanely generous donations and support you give me financially, but also with just like being here, the support, and just hanging out and having like such an amazing little community. And honestly, it's been really like good for my mental health almost to have people like you, Josie, who have discovered me for the first time and hanging around and wanting to hang about as well. It really means a lot to me and has given me so much more confidence and really made me feel excited and motivated to do this more. And yeah, so as always, time to do a basic shilling. If you want to support me and do what the generous Mad Lads did today and help me smash these donation goals, you can support me over on Ko-fi. If you want to support me on a more regular basis, then Patreon is an option that will give you access to some of the STL files I use. And we'll be seeing tomorrow a lot more of as I focus more around my Emperor's Children directly. And if you want to hang out with the lovely community you've seen in the chat today, then you can come out and hang over on the Discord server, especially for you guys who are on Twitch and may not be able to read or really interact with the YouTuber community. And yeah, it's a wonderful place. It's a really supportive place with a bunch of wonderful people who are all very passionate and share their content. And I absolutely adore reading through it all. Finally, if you want to find me on Twitter, it's at Tuppy the Ducky. And again, for those on Twitch, I do upload the VODs from all of these streams onto YouTube. They will be going to different categories, so if you want to watch me just play games like MechWarrior Online, they'll be in their own category. If you want me to watch me do hobby, tutorial focused stuff, there'll be a category for that as well. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all tomorrow.